Hi, this is Ashishat Bedekar, and welcome to my podcast, The ARB Show. I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest, Oliver. He draws on a background in psychology and has over 24 years in user experience consulting and 6 years expertise in exploring spatial computing, including augmented reality. Oliver conducts research and identifies key UX issues to recommend and create design solutions. He has consulted to clients such as Qantas, Atlassian, Jetstar, Westpac, Commonwealth Bank, Optus, NRMA, and ABC. He also consults to a range of startups and has an adjunct position at the University of Sydney to bring academia and industry together around interaction design. He has had a wide range of experience evaluating end-to-end customer experience with mobile devices, wearables, speech interfaces, in-car technology, kiosk. He has conducted field research into future mobile usage and interaction between the mobile devices and other technologies. He also co-hosted the Sydney chapter of Mobile Monday, an international mobile professional networking night for 8 years. I met Oliver when I was planning for Mobile Monday events in Australia, and it's great to talk to him again. Over to you, Oliver, and look forward to hearing your experience with the Apple Vision Pro and your thoughts on the top 5 UX transformation with Apple Vision Pro. Over to you.
Thanks, Ashish, and great to be here. I suppose just to set a context in relation to the Apple Vision Pro and my experience. So I've had the opportunity to participate now in 5 Apple Vision Pro developer labs since September last year. And we released our app day ahead for the Apple Vision Pro for the App Store on launch day of the Apple Vision Pro. I'll tell you a bit more about it shortly. And recently I flew to Los Angeles to pick up my Apple Vision Pro because it's not available in Australia where I live. And I've now had the opportunity to watch over 35 people use the Apple Vision Pro, seeing how they onboard through the experience, how they interact with the Apple Vision Pro, and also interact with a range of third-party apps. So just to tell you a bit about the application that we made, we're a UX consultancy day to day, so we don't do development, we focus on the research strategy and design, but we did want to provide or create an app experience that was specific to spatial computing. So we created an app called Day Ahead, which we believe provides a beautiful and glanceable overview of your calendar events for that day, so that you can always see your next meeting and tap it to find out more. And you get a clock, and there's a ring to show you where you are in your schedule and things like that. And all of this is integrated with Apple's calendar and other calendars like Google and Outlook and so on. So you just need to pick the apps that calendars you want to show, and it is unique to Apple Vision Pro. It's a 3D object, and I'll talk a bit more about that. And you can color it in whatever ways you want and view it horizontally and vertically as well. Wow, and the idea is really to have something specific to a spatial computing workspace.
Right, and people talk of how the AVP is the iPhone movement, or is the kind of iPhone equivalent of the spatial computing, because augmented reality and MR, etc., have been there for some time, but it's kind of AVP has actually made it more accessible, or accessible in terms of concepts, and people are really excited. So I'm sure, like me, all the audience is really excited to hear your views on the AVP and what it means for UX. Yeah, please.
Yeah, certainly. So I think one of the biggest things, it is this step change in experience in terms of people being able to purchase it. Obviously, it's only available in America, and it's very expensive at the moment. But I think it really indicates something that is the future, and it's a key milestone on that path to the future. So I think I want to cover sort of the 5 UX aspects of the Apple Vision Pro today, and I want to start with that word spatial computing. And one of the things that I think is really important about the Apple Vision Pro is that when it starts, you start in reality. You're not presented with a bunch of menus and there's not stuff already in your face. you can just look and see the world around you. And while that's a really small tweak compared to other systems which put menus straight up, I think it's a nice one just to base people and reconnect people with the world around them after they've put this headset on. And it links back to that environment. And the critical thing that I see with spatial computing is being able to make sure that we enhance the real world with digital content and experiences. Okay, it's not about trying to take over people's world, in my view. It's about making the real world better, and that the computer, in this case, something that you wear, a computer that you wear on your head, understands that there is space around you, that there's a physical reality, and it tries to interact to some degree with that physical reality. Now, one of the key things with Apple Vision Pro, again, that is distinct from a number of the other headsets, is that it sort of splits the way that you can interact with it. The simplest way of thinking about things is that we see is either a multiple app experience. So you're able to engage with your email and your calendar and your Slack and a web browser all at the same time in your spatial computing experience all around you, or a single app experience where it takes over that. And that's more like the traditional VR experience where you go into a single app and have that engagement. But the multiple app experiences are really interesting because you can configure your workspace exactly the way you want it. You can put different windows for your apps in different rooms in your house or in your office or whatever that might be. You can not only connect to native apps for the Apple Vision Pro, so things people have created specifically, but even iPad apps that transition across. So Slack, for example, they haven't created a native AVP app, but I use their iPad app in this workspace. And you can also connect to your Mac laptop and things like that. But the key is that you can run these multiple things at once. One of the downsides of the multiple app experience is that you can't leverage a true understanding of the physical world around you, in terms of that there's a wall there that something might stick to, or a desk in front of me that I could put a digital object on. It doesn't know those surfaces. It's not using ARKit and Apple technology to understand those surfaces. But when I go into single app mode, this more sort of a fully immersive mode, then I can detect planes like desks and walls and things like that. And I can also create custom gestures and have different UI controls and so on that are a bit more different to the standard set that are in the general experience. Now, other headsets have done this in the past. Magic Leap 1, for example, had a mode called landscape mode, which did allow you to put objects around in your space and they magnetized to the wall and things like that. And it was really interesting, but that's sort of no longer really an available product. And we've heard from Meta that the Quest 3 mixed reality headset will have these things called augments in the future, which will, again, be more like this spatial computing experience of having objects in your real world. So with each of these points, I sort of want to use our app as a case study. So for Day Ahead, we really wanted to have, this glass capsule that lives in your world amongst other things. The idea is that it's a small object. You don't have to have your whole calendar window taking up a lot of your visual screen space or your visual space. You can have it down on the side and just glance at it whenever you want. And we call these glanceable ambient information visualizations. So things you can just look at and quickly understand, hey, looks like I've got a meeting in about 15 minutes. You can tap on it if you want and see who that meeting's with and things like that. So that's the first thing that I wanted to talk about today.
Got it. So here, just like all Apple products, Apple is never the first in the market, right? They study where their competition has gone wrong. And I think they have a very strong emphasis on the human-computer interface, understanding from a UX perspective and getting it right. So that's a benchmark for all of us. Another point which I just wanted to check with you is one of the big complaints, a big pushback against adoption of VR headsets is, one is you can't use it for a very long time. right? People have complained of, after a certain period of time, you start getting headaches. So that's one. And secondly is the whole process for developing for AVP. So is there a separate SDK which people need to use to create specific AVP specific products? And what's the kind of delta of experience if just the sample iPad app which kind of gets carried over to AVP? Would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, sure. So to answer the first question, we've spent multiple days spending a lot of that time during, especially the labs and things, with the headset on, and I've not experienced anything like that. I haven't experienced headaches, haven't experienced any issues. As I said, I've now seen 35 people use the Apple Vision Pro in front of me. Now, they tended to be sort of more half-hour sessions, but I've only had one person who sort of got affected by the motion. And actually that was earlier today. So, a number of aspects of the quality of the resolution and the way that you engage with reality seem to be better than previous headsets. So it's making those issues better. It's probably not solving them completely. So I think, there's also the weight, and obviously, it depends on how comfortable you are with that, and different headbands that you can wear with the device change that as well. But as I said, I haven't really experienced any of those issues and rarely see those. The second question about the development, there are really sort of three different approaches. The first one is, the first one is to really just make an iPad app available in the Apple Vision Pro. That's the simplest if you've already got an iPad app. The second one is to create a native app using SwiftUI, so the Xcode in IDE, to create a volumetric or a 2D experience. So our day ahead app is a volume, it's a 3D space within that environment, or a 2D space, just a flat screen. And that's within the multi-app environment I talked about. Or you can create a SwiftUI app with Xcode in the single app, the immersive space, same tool set. Now, the last option is to use Unity as an IDE that a lot of people are familiar with, especially if you've come from a VR background. And you can then bring that into the Apple Vision Pro, and there's a plugin basically to translate that across from Unity into the Apple Vision Pro. So you can then adjust things there and so on. And we've tried that path as well. It's going to be an easier path for a lot of people if they've already got content, whether that's games, etc., in Unity, but it's probably not the best path or the optimal path. If you were starting from scratch, you'd probably go SwiftUI. Depends on your cross-platform ambitions.
Okay. So what's the second trend or second thing which you would like to talk about AVP?
Yeah, I think critically, this headset is quite different in the interactions that it uses. So the interactions that it uses are gaze, so your eyesight and where you are looking when you have the headset on is a way of navigating between the different icons and different elements that are in front of you. And then the pinch gesture, so the thumb and forefinger, is how you tap or select something. And you can do different ones, so you can pinch quickly, you can pinch and hold, you can pinch and drag, you can pinch and flick and things, but it's all based around that core gesture. You can have two hands and pinch and then pull apart to zoom in or to come together. So what we found is that we'll put people might not have even used a virtual reality headset before, but they will quickly pick it up. We've actually found two sort of styles of interaction. Although you don't need to actually reach your arm up and pinch the thing in front of you, the menu option, even though we tell people, no, you can just put your hands on the desk or in your lap and you can pinch from there, they often will return and they want to keep pinching the actual object, which is fine because that works too. So there are some little issues. It's not perfect. It doesn't always detect. Some people have to take a while to get the pinch right, but it doesn't take very long. So especially if we compare that to a lot of our experiences in the past with the Oculus headsets and the Magic Leaps, which have either one or two hand controllers, which have multiple buttons. And it's really confusing to tell somebody in a headset, hey, press button A on your left-hand controller, or press the top trigger. And they're like, oh, I don't know what that is. And you've got to show them and things like that. So, you can also use a PS5 controller, an Xbox controller, if you want to game within this experience. So they might actually add hand controllers like the other VR headsets to those later on. Who knows? In our app, we've kept to the very basic pinch. So we were even thinking about maybe for one interaction, instead of just pinching, we'd do pinch and hold. But we just went with a pinch and then another pinch instead of trying to make it too confusing. And I think that's what Apple does. They did it with the iPhone. Let's make a simple set of gestures so that everybody new to the platform can really engage with it quickly. And then over time, they might start to expand those out.
Excellent. So I think this is a very interesting masterclass in user experience, because I was just reflecting, one of the famous things which Steve Jobs used to say is that, customers are really excited to have a new device in the hand, right? So they don't want to spend time in reading the user manual. Right.
That's right.
It should be
back to the one button mouse.
Exactly. It should be as easy for them to kind of start interacting. And it's great to see that, interaction, which is really the language of using the EVP, is something which people can really gather very quickly. So that's excellent. What would be the third observation?
The third thing that is quite unique again to this headset is when you first launch it, it asks you to hold your iPhone near to it, and it detects a lot of the settings, and then you log in with your Apple ID, and basically all your content then comes down. So your photos, your calendar, your email, your content, all these things. And that is really different from the other headsets like the Meta headsets and the Magic Leap, where they don't really have equivalents. And what that does is that whole ecosystem, the Apple ecosystem, if you are in it, obviously if you're not, then that's a different experience. But if you're in it, everything's there. You don't have to worry about things, and you can start to engage with the experience in a much fuller way than going, oh, I'm brand new to this Meta Quest. I have to go to the Quest store. I have to find where an app is that's of interest to me, and then start downloading those and find out if they're right to me. So I think that transition, that aspect is really interesting, the ecosystem around the content. For those of us who might have used the HoloLens 1, like even just signing into a Wi-Fi with a virtual keyboard can be really problematic, and signing in with usernames, whereas, Apple being Apple, that you can use things like Optic ID to sign into services or to make payments. It checks your eye once you've authorized it to start with. So there's a lot of real ecosystem benefits for it being another Apple device in your suite of Apple devices. It makes it easy to switch between, your Mac, your Apple Vision Pro, your iPhone, your iPad, your Apple Watch. It just feels like another part of it. With Day Ahead, with our app, one of the things was we didn't want to take people's data or use people's data in any way. So we've linked into EventKit, which is an Apple API. So on your device, it reads what's in your calendar, but it doesn't share it out to us or anything else. It just looks locally on the device. So that makes it really easy to be part of the ecosystem, to quickly understand all the calendars that people have and use that information in a useful way.
Got it. So here, I think the key insight is, make it as easy as customers to kind of start using the product, because people who use Apple products are already used to the entire ecosystem, right? And it's the more seamless transition you have from one device category to the other, more is the likely adoption. I mean, I can vouch for it, because when I use the iPhone and the Mac and my Apple Watch, everything works beautifully, right? And that's what is the kind of key thing. It just works, right?
Yeah. And I think what that does is encourage engagement, right? Because I don't only have one reason or a couple of reasons, like to go in and play this game or that game. I can go in and read my email, or I can go and sit on the couch and read my email, or I can go and do this, and I can go and do that. So there's immediately more reasons to use the Apple Vision Pro
Got
than
it.
previous type of headset.
Got it. And I think it also creates some kind of a virtuous loop because, essentially it becomes like a horizontal platform. So it's no longer a specialized device where you need to do something fancy and then you kind of start using it. But, it's kind of a horizontal platform. And then because customers are adopting it in a great way and really fall in love with the product, that kind of motivates people to develop apps for Apple products and then kind of makes it a unbeatable play. Excellent. So let's
Exactly,
move over to
exactly.
the
Well, also the fact that on day one they had 600 apps ready to go, right? And a lot of those were because they were iPad apps that people could just move across and adjust for the Vision Pro. So.
got it, got it. So yeah, let's move to the fourth point. What you have in store for us?
This is probably one of the most exciting, I think, especially as somebody from a user experience background, is that with user experience, what we try to do is solve people's problems, right? We look at their needs and behaviors when interacting with digital services, and we try and create the best ways to do those. Now, the Apple Vision Pro and spatial computing really open up a whole new range of user interface and user interaction opportunities. So no longer are we constrained by the size of the screen. No longer do we only have the size of the screen in front of us. We can put screens all around us in 360. We can put screens behind screens. We can put screens in different rooms so that only when I go into that room do I see that screen. And that's really different. So that's just even 2D screens are dynamic in their size and so on. But the other exciting things is creating 3D objects and making these things models of content, or making ways that we can engage with content in a much more physical way. So I can grab something and I can move it over there, or I can join two things together and I can move around in physical space, which sort of feels more natural if it's done right, compared to mousing on something and pointing a little cursor at it and then dragging it over there and things like that. So I think that's a critical one. And this is something that I think will really evolve over time, because we haven't had much time to play with those types of interactions in a mixed reality sense. We have with the HoloLens with mixed reality and Magic Leap, but they haven't been huge sort of consumer plays, obviously. So to me, it's this unique combination of user experience design, where we're dealing with the digital aspects, but we're also looking at the service design of some of these, where we move through the physical space, and there might be other things that are playing into, from a back end of a physical service that could engage with those things as well. So I think it's a really, really unique opportunity. And again, that's why we did Day Ahead. We made it this beautiful glass tube, because it's not a big window. It's not a big flat window. It's a very simple thing that I can put anywhere. I can put it on the shelf in my office, or I can put it by the door so that I can just glance at it, or above my monitor, or wherever it might be. So I think there's going to be, and that's just the start of things, because we need to have these types of devices to be able to really think through the opportunities. So I think it's a very exciting time in that regard.
Oh, and one can really, imagine what kind of exciting stuff we would have in the coming years, because you can also think about what kind of cinematic experiences you can get with the AVP, as it is whatever one has seen on movies, like movie experiences to the next level. So maybe when Hollywood might actually think about, okay, how do I make this a AVP class movie, right? So some very interesting experience can also be there. Great.
Yeah,
So,
and I think that's quite an interesting aspect, because you can take a panorama photo that you've been able to take with your iPhone for years, but now you experience it in a very different way because of the new UI. Now that panorama wraps around you in full size almost, and you have this very different experience. Or you can do spatial videos, which can record memories in a much more visceral way. It feels like you're there. Or 3D content from the movies, where you're sitting in a cinema and you have a huge screen in front of you that you couldn't possibly fit in your house, but you can sit on an aeroplane and watch movies in that way. So they're all new user interface opportunity.
Wow, fantastic. Great. So, what would be your final concluding observation on this?
I think it is the overarching aspect of it becoming this transition device. So one of the problems whenever you create a new device is how do you move people from what they currently use to adopting this? And it comes back to that aspect of the ecosystem, but it makes it an easy step. It's not a difficult one. So I can go from using my Mac or my iPad and all my apps, or most of my apps that I use, like Notion or Slack or anything, are there. So it's a transition space. I can use my Mac there, so I can do stuff that I'm very familiar with already, alongside these very new experiences. And that's exciting. And that means that people, again, are going to use it more and things like that. But it's also makes it easier for people then to go, okay, well, I know how it works currently. How can I create these new experiences and these new user interfaces that we talked about? And from a device perspective, the hardware of this device is interesting because it's probably the first time a lot of people are going to strap something that big to their face and have this device. It is heavier than some of the other devices, there's no doubt about that, but there's a quality benefit there. So the way I think about it is that this is the biggest and the heaviest that the Apple Vision Pro will ever be. They'll only get lighter from here and hopefully cheaper, etc., and more accessible to a broader market. But now's the time for designers, UX designers and developers, to really start to get into this and understand the benefits of spatial computing so they can reinvent these experiences in a new way. So it's a transition device from a user perspective, but also from a industry and arc of spatial computing. It's just the start of this. This is not what they're going to be like forever. And one day we expect that they will go more to glasses. Now, with the Apple Vision Pro, it's what we call a video pass-through device. So there are cameras on the outside of it. You can't see through it if it's off. There are cameras on the outside, and when they turn on, they play reality onto the screens inside. But what a lot of other headsets like the Magic Leap and HoloLens are is they're optical see-through. So they're more like a pair of glasses where even if the device is off, I can see through the glass. But there are issues with that. You can only have a smaller field of view. You can have the digital content canvas is much smaller through those. Obviously that lets light in and other things from around the side, so less useful for more immersive experiences. But again, I think this is the start of Apple's. I'm sure Apple's got a very long roadmap. And I think the Apple Vision Pro has really prompted a lot of the other players as well to look at their strategies and to look at how they can either provide a higher quality experience or maybe a smaller and lighter experience like Meta are currently doing. And I do like the Meta strategy because they've got both the high-end headsets like the Meta Quest 3 and the Meta Quest Pro, but they've also got at the low end the glasses, the smart glasses like the Meta glasses and so on. And we're seeing a lot of that happen in China at the moment, the smart glasses approach of it, smart glasses connected to your mobile phone and providing you a heads-up display that might have really simple gestures and so on. So I think this is the start of a whole new thing. It's a key milestone. It's not the beginning of the industry because there's been things before, but I think it's a significant step change in the user experience, especially for engaging with mixed reality and spatial computing.
Great. Thanks, Oliver. This gives a great perspective. And thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in. Do subscribe, share, and like this podcast. Bye for now. Talk to you soon.